One second.
It's Jasper.
And this is Jamal. Welcome to Niner Talk with Jasper and Jamal. We are your co-host. We are excited and looking forward to 49ers content with you guys. We appreciate you guys for coming out. So Jasper, how are we doing today? How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Ready to get this going, and it's been a long time coming, man. Shout out Croc, man, for giving us the space, man, to talk about what we love to talk about, man, and just happy that whoever's in here and ready to get this rolling.
Absolutely, yeah, I'm right there with you. It's like you just said. Shout out to Croc for giving us the opportunity, get our names out there, get our podcast going. Niner Talk, the best talk. I'm really excited about it. Let's start off with. I want to start by going over some of the injuries that Shanahan talked about today. And I want to start with Trenton Cannon. Obviously, we're going to talk about the Seahawks. We'll also look back, talk about the Bengals coming forward. But first and foremost, shout out to Trenton Cannon. He's doing okay. He's stable. He was able to return to San Francisco. I believe it was yesterday. Neck and spine concerns were the concerns that we had based off of that first play. He's stable, like I said. He is in concussion protocol, so that is something to look out for. But I did want to just start with that. Praise God that he's doing okay and he's able to make it back home. So that's the first injury. Let's see who else. Shanahan said today, Mo Hurst, he's out with the calf. He didn't practice. Greenlaw out with a groin injury. He didn't practice. Deebo Samuel, also groin injury, no practice yet. We'll see if he plays this week. I'm sure you and I will get into that a little bit later. We'll see if he does, maybe not. It's a telltale sign that he didn't practice today, though, as well. Elijah Mitchell, that was an interesting one. So concussion protocol. I believe it was Darrell Taylor that hit him in the Seahawks game across the helmet, but also a knee injury as well. Came out today. That's a knee irritation. And Shanahan said that he's considered day-to-day, and he's hoping that he'll be able to practice tomorrow. We'll see what happens with that. The hope is that he'll be able to practice tomorrow, and I'm sure we'll get into this as well, too. Brian Hill was signed today from the Falcons. Maybe that is with this injury in mind, considering now that JaMycal Hasty's the only true healthy back on our team. Let's see who else. We've got Emmanuel Mosley, high ankle sprain there. No practice as well. He's probably going to be out for a few weeks. Jeff Wilson, he had a knee flare-up, so he was limited today in practice. Alex Mack and Trent Williams were the last two. They didn't practice, but it wasn't injury-related. I believe it was just a vet day. He didn't say it was, but when guys like that are normally out, we consider those vet days.
Yeah, we're not worried about those guys at all.
No. So overall thoughts on the injury so far?
Nothing too surprising other than Elijah Mitchell's knee flaring up.
Right.
We didn't expect that. We expected him to be in some kind of concussion protocol, even when, he came back into the game. He did come back into the game after that. But either way, just how the league is now with head injuries, I expected him to be in some kind of concussion protocol. Just didn't obviously expect him, to have, a knee issue flare up. But my gut tells me he'll play. And they kind of just signed, was it Brian Hill?
Brian Hill, that's correct.
Brian Hill, yeah. I think they just kind of brought him in because, you don't know what's going to happen with Jeff Wilson. And then you obviously, don't want to go into a game with, potentially just, Hasty.
Right.
As your lead back. So from what I remember of him, I think, again, I remember him with the Falcons. I think he's also been with the Titans since then as well. So, again, just sounds like, just a journeyman and kind of just somebody they, wanted to get in just, for precaution and for depth purposes.
Right.
But I don't expect too much from him.
Right. I actually don't expect too much as well. I'm wondering if it's not too serious with Mitchell and he still plays, will this guy be cut? Will Brian Hill end up being cut? It also kind of depends on what happens with Jeff Wilson as well.
Right.
What's his status going to be? Is he going to play? And if Hasty, obviously we know he's the healthiest back right now, will he continue to play? Will he be healthy? I don't know if he might even end up being the kick returner this week. I'm sure we'll get into special teams here in a few minutes and stuff. But this seems to be, to me so far, like a preventative measure. Totally understand it. We'll see what happens. What is today? Wednesday. It's a few days till the game. I totally understand the signing. We'll see if he's here long term or not. My gut tells me probably not.
We'll know more tomorrow. I mean, today is the real practice day. Tomorrow and Friday are always gonna be like your lighter walkthrough days when you're really gonna know like who's actually gonna be in and who's out. We'll know by tomorrow who's playing. We'll know if Debo's playing. We'll know if most likely if Elijah Mitchell's playing. We'll know if Jeff Wilson, those guys that are kind of on the brink. We'll know for sure by tomorrow if they're playing.
Right. Absolutely. So let's see here. Oh, thank you for the contributions that are coming in. Let me see if I can display some of these. Newbies over here, guys.
Yeah, bear with us.
It's not showing it. I'm seeing them in the chat. Let's see if I can show this one. There we go. Wishing y'all much success.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, Raymond. Appreciate that, brother. I'm seeing a few others in here. We got Chris, my guy Roscoe's. Appreciate the love, guys.
It's so wild, like how like
Lewis.
The community, like man, like the community, like it's just you talk to some of these dudes in spaces and just like man, the love is appreciated, man. I appreciate all y'all, man.
You got Sean up in here.
Right, man. I appreciate you, big dog.
We appreciate y'all, man. Yeah, there's nothing like the 49ers.
I might have known some of these dudes for maybe like a few weeks, and
that's facts. That's what I'm saying.
You know what I mean? This isn't like it's not like an established, relationship with any of these, people we communicate with on a daily basis in some of these spaces, man. So so just to see some of
it's like a family,
man, it's humbling. Yeah, it's extremely humbling, man. Wow, I really appreciate the support and appreciate y'all, man. It is, and it's good to also it's good to hear different point of views and talk to people who don't necessarily have your same view on the team and have your same outlook on how things are going right now or how they're going to be in the future, but to still see the love and support either way, regardless, man, is again, it's just a really, really humbling feeling, man. And again, I appreciate all y'all.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm right there with you. As we transition here to talk about the Seahawks game, obviously there's some points and things that we want to talk about, but I want to first get your main takeaways and your general reaction to that game. What comes to mind when you think about the 49ers versus the Seahawks and what you saw on Sunday?
I mean, more heartbreak. Just add that to the bank. Add that to the jar of the house of horrors that has been since 2011, 2012. Like
facts.
That one's up there. That one's up there with the 2013 NFC Championship game. That one's up there with, and just off of not with that what was at stake. Those games that game obviously had way more at stake.
Right.
But just like the feeling I felt back then, like, okay, we're better than them. I felt like even though these teams have been going at it, like it's a rivalry, like that was at our peak. They were at their peak.
Mm-hmm.
But I've still felt like at the end of the day, even if I was an outsider looking in, like, nah, this Niner team is special. Like they're better. We're better than them, And I remember how I felt watching Navarro get his knee tore up and, him losing the ball, and they still gave it to the Seahawks. But then we still ended up getting it back at the, you know what I mean? Like just the back and forth that those games were. This one felt like that to me. Like,
it was drunk.
It had all those emotions. And this team, neither of our teams are obviously what we were back then, almost a decade ago. But you still had that feeling like this is that right.
Yo.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like this is gonna be that feeling of I'm gonna get my heart ripped out at the end of the game for whatever reason. And ironically, as the Seahawks are driving to pretty much put the game away. And of course, Aziz makes an incredible play, gets us the ball back. And then I'm thinking immediately in my head, because it already happened a few times in the game, we get a stop. But we're on the 1 yard. We gotta go 90. So, and of course, just when you don't think the Niners, like we're not gonna be able to go, then they drive down the field, go 90, and then of course, get stuck at the goal line, and just come up a little bit short. So, with that said, it was heartbreaking for sure. It was tough for me to talk afterwards. Anybody who knows me knows how much I love my Niners, and I don't sugarcoat anything.
Facts.
All this started with me. I used to go, on Twitter rants, and certain based off certain draft picks, and Croc used to have to, calm me down a little bit, and that's how all this really started. This was probably about 4 or 5 years in the making, man. Me and Croc used to go back and forth on Twitter,
right?
And we obviously had a relationship outside of that, but he knows how emotional I get, and so after that game, it was definitely tough, because I knew they not only would it have been the icing on the cake to kind of end their season, we also needed the game to kind of solidify ourselves, nicely in that fifth, sixth, seventh seed for the playoff spot.
Right. It's like we were trying to hold pace because with the Rams, right?
Exactly. We're trying to hold pace. We still got a little bit of help, even though we still got a little bit of help on Sunday. The Lions beat the Vikings, like things like that. Yes. Like we did get a little help that helped us out, but it's still like you don't want to be 6-6 right now. Like now this game that's coming up this weekend is even bigger than it would have been had we won coming in 7-5. Like you feel like you might have had a little bit of momentum and some room to breathe, which now you feel like you basically got to win out. So I felt like with that said, though, I do feel like they did a lot of things. They did a lot of good things. They exercised some demons in the sense of I don't, having somebody like Kittle really establishes dominance again.
Right. Well, before we get to the positives, let's stay with the negative so we can end on a positive note.
100%. Yeah. It was tough. It was tough. Like it was.
Yeah.
That's what it was. You would have liked them to not turn the ball over. You'd have liked them to stir up some of the special teams things. You would have liked, there's some goofy calls on Shanahan's part. We hadn't seen that in a few weeks. He's kind of been, I wouldn't say in his bag, but he's been calling really good games, especially for Jimmy. These last few weeks on the win streak, going back to the Rams game, he'd been calling a pretty good game. He had some questionable calls, this past weekend. Didn't cost him the game, but you would like not to see those things. So it was a tough game. It was definitely a tough game, man. And it didn't have to be, That's the thing. It didn't have to be. Right.
And that's really what it comes. I'm so glad that you said that. It didn't have to be, because that's my takeaway from this game. This was a game that I really feel like the Niners lost. We gave the Seahawks so many opportunities to win that game, yet they gave us opportunities to win the game as well. They had 4 turnovers and we had 3. 7 turnovers in one game, that's a lot. And yeah, I understand it's a divisional game, so those things are going to happen. I totally get that. But that first half, from the beginning of the game, from the very beginning with Trent Cannon, and then the Seahawks, I don't remember if it was a 3-and-out. I don't think they necessarily went 3-and-out, but on that first 4th down, a trick punt play to Homer, who scores a touchdown. I'm not personally mad at Brandon Ayuk for not making the tackle, because I didn't really expect him to. He's not like a safety. He's not like a corner. He did his. I don't want to say whether he did or didn't do his best. I just didn't expect it, and we didn't defend it very well. So since we're talking negative first, that's my first concern is the special teams. It wasn't just that play, obviously. You can go back to the Vikings game. We gave up a lot of kickoff return yards in that game. Kenny Nwangwu, he had a kick return touchdown in that game. Special teams as a whole has been not very good this year. Obviously, we can look back at Travis Benjamin. He fumbles the ball away first play, second half. Seahawks get the ball. Jimmy Garoppolo gets the safety. That's not special teams, but that's another 2 points there as well. Let's think about. That's just the main takeaways from special teams is we gave them too many opportunities. I wasn't impressed with that, and I would say at this point, I'm not calling for anybody to be fired or anything like that with Hightower, but I can't be surprised if his seat's a little hot. I'm not sure if you're able to hear the press conference today, but there was questions, and he didn't run. He didn't run from any of the questions that were asked. He said, it starts with me. I respect that. I like that he said that. It starts with me. I got to get these guys prepared. I got to get them in better positions. And I know we've talked to a lot of these people here on Twitter Spaces. One of the things that I've said, I actually mentioned it earlier today as well too, is when it comes to special teams and it comes to the returners, one of the concerns that I have is that we've had different returners back there, whether it be the kickoff kickoff coverage or kickoff returning, punt returning. We've had the Mohamed Sanu's. We've had the Brandon Ayuks. We've now had the Jermichael Haseys. We've had a lot of turnover. We had the Travis Benjamins as well. It's been a lot of different returners. For me, obviously, I haven't played in the NFL or anything like that, but I got to assume that there's some sort of consistency a player may need in order to, get a little bit more comfortable running those plays. I personally have been one of the few that thought, and I honestly thought Simba Webster was going to make the team. I thought he had a good preseason. I know he had a couple turnovers. I think he had 2 turnovers. Talked to my guy Roscoe's about this a couple days ago. So yeah, he's been prone to cough up the ball as well, but I just thought he brought a little bit of extra juice to that. Go ahead.
So what you mentioned is every guy you mentioned plays snaps on offense. So I think Kyle going into that, I don't think Kyle saw Simba Webster as somebody that would have actually taken snaps, that would have actually got on the field during the, and played offense. So I think the way he was looking at it is, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. If I'm going to have somebody who could return, so I can't fault him for that. Especially after you cut a Richie James, after you cut a Simba Webster, like those are the 2, those 2 guys right there are 2 dudes who you would strictly just kind of see as return specialists specifically. And I think Kyle was just trying to get over on, and I brought this up in the spaces early in the week, is special teams aren't looked at the same way like they were in the early 2000s to even the mid 2000s, where you just have a guy that's designated. You don't have your Ted Gins anymore. You don't have your Josh Cribbs anymore. You don't have your
Jamal Agnew.
Your Dante Halls, like those cats were return specialists. Like that's what they did. Like they barely saw the field on offense. Now I don't know why, but the game was a little different back then, where you didn't necessarily value a return man, and then also the return guy also wasn't your biggest playmaker. He was just a return guy who made plays returning the ball, but he wasn't necessarily your biggest playmaker. It wasn't always. Devin Hester was an outlier in the sense of he was, but like for the most part, your return guy also wasn't your best playmaker. Right now, the 49ers' best playmaker is Deebo Samuel. They're not going to have. Now they have put him back there in like
a couple times. You're right.
Sporadically, just to see if he could pop some every now and then. Like even Odell when he first came.
Just about to say that.
Right nowadays, it's spot duty. Your best player can be a kick return. D-Jack, when he got into the league, he was still returning punts, but as he became morphed into the wide receiver 1 for Philly, then they were like, all right, we have to be a little more cautious with how we're putting him back there. You know what I mean? So that it's. And now the game has even moved to the point where, again, there's barely any kick returns because they've moved it back. So Kyle's like, why am I going to value a roster spot with somebody? This is just me thinking for him.
And that's my point, though. That's my point right there. I think philosophically, I just disagree with that. I do think that this year has shown us why we would need so much.
There's a lot of hidden yardage in special teams, 100%. You're right.
Right.
But how much?
So for me, I don't
value enough to justify a roster spot, though.
Right. I personally like Simba Webster. I know he's only been in the league since 2019. He's jumped around. He was with the Rams. Obviously, I think now he's with the Bears. So he's jumped around. I totally get it.
Ideally, you want a guy like DeAndre Carter, like the Redskins had. The Niners did have a few years ago.
I say Jamal Agnew. Or
Agnew, because ideally those are guys who again get spot duty on offense, but also are your return specialists. You know, what I mean? That's ideally what you want. Kind of like how they've done with Richie James over the past few years, and he only started in games where he was pressed into duty, where you had your Ayuks and your Debos out.
Right.
But for the main
Green Bay Packers, we remember that from last year.
Right. And I honestly thought they underused him. I was like, they could at least try to get him the ball and maybe spare Debo on some of these plays that they do all these reverses and tunnel screens, and even they've got it to him. I think the Arizona game a few years ago, they got it to him when he was like a wide receiver 3 and wide receiver 4, I think, in that year. And they still were designing plays. They would get him the tunnel screen. He popped the tunnel screen for like 60 or 50 yards, broke that. I think they were down. They were desperate, and they just like, hey, you're a playmaker. Let's get you the ball. Like,
right.
But again, I just think that it just really comes down to Maul. Like, they're not going to. At the way the league has changed with that, they're not going to. They might after this year, seeing
that's my
how
question.
They have struggled now, they might value it a little more, but I can't see it being valued too much more. Like it's just not a position of value. It's more of a luxury to me, to be honest with you. I think it's a luxury more than a necessity. Like if you have somebody that could pop one, great. But ideally, like he was, even before they got Richie James, I want to say they were cool with just putting not Trent Sherfield, but mini Wes Welker 2.0. My God.
Oh yeah. Trent
Taylor. They were cool with just putting Trent Taylor back there. He wasn't gonna break. He never was gonna break it. But you know what he was gonna do? He was gonna catch the fucking ball. And the Patriots used to do that all the time. Wes Welker when he was there, and Julian Edelman, they're just going to secure the ball. You're not worried about popping one. You're literally just worried about somebody making a fair catch, knowing how to judge. We see Ayuk. Ayuk's gonna have sure hands and he'll catch it, but he's still in between. He still doesn't really know. Okay, should I field this? Anything with
exactly
the 10 yards? He's still struggling with that. So you can see it's not as natural, and that's why again, it does help to have somebody back there that is experienced and essentially a return specialist. But
that's my whole point. I think at the end of the day, I think philosophically, I just disagree with having a guy that can do that. I think you should have a guy that can do that. You can go look at the Patriots. Nobody would know the name Gunnar Olszewski if he wasn't a good returner. He's honestly a really good returner. I think the Patriots actually value those things, the small things. I just think the Patriots are a team that values all of these small things, where sometimes I think Kyle Shanahan doesn't necessarily value those. Like you said, you want to kill two birds with one stone. You made me think about this. When you brought up Trent Taylor, I think the ultimate plan was to have him probably still to this day be that guy, but injuries got the best of him. And clearly now,
and lack of production when he did.
Absolutely.
If he was still,
he was good off third down.
If he was still the third down monster moving the chains like he was in 2017 when Jimmy first got there, and him and Jimmy had a great chemistry. And I was at that Jags game. And was cracking Jacob. I was at that Jags game, and I remember thinking to myself, "Wow, like Trent Taylor could be something going forward."
Oh yeah,
watching him getting out of his breaks,
short area kick quickness was elite. I really thought so.
And he moved, and not like, I mean, that's a low hanging fruit comparison, but like not to just keep comparing him to Wes Welker, but he reminded me a lot of just the things that Wes Welker would do, and that's why Jimmy trusted him so much on those third downs. Even the third down, I think it was the game in Chicago, Jimmy's first start when they. I think it was Gold that kicked the game-winning field goal. Trent Taylor had a big catch down the stretch. It was I think it was over the middle. He took it all the way. I think took it into like Bears territory, and that was when I was like, hey, he could really be something. And I think, to your point, I think ideally, Shanahan would just be getting away with just having his fourth or fifth receiver on the depth chart. That's taking a roster spot essentially, but can still play if I need him to.
Right.
But ideally, just return. But yeah, we don't need to beat this dead horse too long, man. Special teams is obviously a struggle, with this team right now.
I think Derek, this dude here said it best. Ambry has a chance to do that. I just don't think that they want to use him that way.
I think they drafted him. I hope so.
They drafted
him in the hopes of molding him into that cornerback 2 or 3. Playing behind Verrett right now, Quan and E-Man.
Right.
But then still having him active to return punts, because that's what he did at Michigan.
Absolutely.
So I believe,
and he might have the juice to do it. He very well might. We'll see.
Right. And I'm still not sure why they haven't tried him. I don't. What he does defensively should have nothing to do with what he should be able to do when it comes to the return game.
Absolutely.
I'm that's one that has had me like, really, Kyle? Like, he can't.
Yeah. If he's not going to be, we can leave that one alone. We'll leave that one alone. But the last thing I'll say here in regards to special teams is, as you had just mentioned with Brandon Ayuk, he's still learning some of those things in terms of when do I field it? When do I just fair catch it? And in that regard, you can look at our second half starting drives. I wrote them down here. We started the first drive our own 3, but that one was due to K1's interception on Gerald Everett. He got that one. The next one was our own 8, an Ayuk fair catch. Jermichael Hasty came in for the third one. He caught the ball at the 7-yard line, returned it to our 30. The next one, a 4-yard return, a negative 4-yard return by Ayuk. He caught the ball at the 12. He was downed at our 8. And then obviously the last drive was not the interception.
He was on a rock and a hard place.
Al-Shaair. He was
on a rock and a hard place because that ball, it actually bounced and just took off. And
You're right.
He saw it taking a Seattle bounce, and he's like, "Fuck that! I'm scooping this shit." So at least he tried to get back to like the 10 or something, or the 15 or whatever. He just happened to obviously end up getting tackled. So,
but that just goes back to my main point of just the inconsistencies of having a different guy back there. I think a rhythm has to be kind of put into place for some of these guys. That's the last thing we can say about the special teams there. Continuing with our trend of negative, so we can get to the positive. Give me your reaction to Jimmy Garoppolo in this specific game.
Nothing. And I said that in the spaces earlier today, like before I hopped on here. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. We learned nothing. Nothing was changed. Like it was like fucking Groundhog's Day. He throws the same interception that we've seen him throw before. He misses use check on the exact same fucking play that he always misses him on. Like literally does the same thing every week. I didn't go into that game. Or after the game, wasn't like, damn, Jimmy is horrible. I knew that already. And then when he made nice throws, I wasn't like, oh, damn, Jimmy. Like, I know he can make those throws because we see good Jimmy, bad Jimmy every week. I didn't go in. I didn't take anything from that game. That was the exact same Jimmy Garoppolo I've seen. He has not gotten any better. He's not gotten any worse. He's just the same. But the old saying is, if you're not getting better, you're technically getting worse. So,
agreed.
That said, he is what he is at this point, which is why they did everything they did in this offseason to get out from under him. But we're still here, and we're still under him, and it's weird, and it's not ideal. And if everything isn't perfect for him in the game, we see that he struggles. And
absolutely,
with that said, they got to be perfect going forward, and everything has to be perfect around him for us to make a run.
Been saying that
like it was in 2019. So. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to watch. It's frustrating to see him make incredible throws, and it's frustrating to see him miss layups. But that's literally who he's been this entire time. So,
and I'm not trying to say I told anybody so, because I don't know more than any of the next person, but this has been what we've been questioning. Obviously, we won our last three.
Yeah.
In what fashion? Well, we've been able to run the ball. We haven't had to get out of our game plan. And excuse my French, but I've been saying we haven't gotten to any of those oh shit games where you have to change some of the things that you want to do. We've been able to run the ball 40 times. We've been able to run the ball 38 times. We've had Elijah Mitchell, who's been able to run the ball 28, 30 times a game. Games. I don't ideally like him running that much. I like him. I like Elijah Mitchell a lot. And I like that he's getting a bigger workload because maybe he is that bell cow. But my question is 30 times a game, 40 times a game. I don't like it that much because I only think there's maybe a couple guys in the league that should be doing it that much. And I could think of a Derrick Henry, a Jonathan Taylor. That's a whole nother discussion. Let me not get too far off of Jimmy Garoppolo. What I want to say about Jimmy is, like you just said, this is what we've known. This is Jimmy. When things don't go perfectly, how is he going to respond?
Mm-hmm.
He had to throw the ball 30 times. I think he completed 20 passes, 20 out of 30 for what was it, 299, and 181 of those went to George Kittle. Shout out George Kittle. He had himself a game. We'll get to him in a little bit later. But my question with Jimmy is, hey, teams want him to throw the ball 30 times. I sent out a tweet actually 2-3 days ago saying any team's game plan for Jimmy Garoppolo, let's stop the run or at least neutralize it. Let's get the 49ers behind the sticks and let's force Jimmy Garoppolo to throw the ball 25 plus times. We know he's going to throw us one or two. I truly think that's probably what teams think. If we can stop the 49ers run and we can force Shanahan to make Garoppolo throw the ball, we can probably get one or two that he'll throw to us. If that happens, hey, one play, 2 plays, 1 interception, 2 interception, that may be just enough to win a game. And when it comes to the Seahawks, I don't think the Seahawks are a very good team, but they've been opportunistic. And with those opportunities, you get shorter fields, which has allowed them to score and get their points. The only one I can remember that was a longer drive was at the very end of the half. I think we had scored right after the 2-minute warning. I think they got the ball back with 1:40. They drove down the field. That was when we had the untimely penalties of the unnecessary roughness, shots to the head to Wilson. The only difference there, I think that might have been the only drive that they had that truly went all the way down the field.
Yeah.
And they scored with 15 seconds left to de-Eskridge, and they were picking on Lenore. Let's be real.
So why
That was when the Lenore came in.
Can we talk about something real quick?
Yeah.
Why is the narrative? Because if that's the narrative for Jimmy, as far as if you're the other team, you're game planning for the 49ers, it's let's make Jimmy throw the ball around. Why isn't that same energy for Joe Burrow? And he leads the NFL in interceptions. But we don't.
You done took my point. You done took my point. I was gonna bring it up too. I agree with you. I agree with you.
Okay, that's wild. Yeah, and folks, we didn't really have a crazy production meeting before. We don't even talk. That's wild.
I agree with you on that.
Just thinking, because I'm thinking like hearing that, and it's like, why is that same energy for Joe Burrow? And he leads the NFL in interceptions, but we don't.
Well, if you want to be real, we can talk about that real quick. There's a lot of guys this year who are giving up interceptions and not necessarily.
And that's credit to Kyle, because he knows what he has and he also knows what he doesn't have. So he tries to play to Jimmy's strengths and tries to stick with that, and also his offensive strength. And his best strength is not turning the ball over and running the ball. So let's take the ball out of Jimmy G's hands. So those numbers would probably look a lot different if he was just saying, "Oh, fuck it, like Jimmy, do what you got to do, and let's just throw the ball around." Like, yeah, Jimmy's interception numbers would probably be a lot higher as well, which they do give Burrow a lot of leeway to do that, because he also has dogs out there to do. Not to say that Jimmy does.
You got to throw the ball, yeah,
exactly. Yeah, they have, they invested a lot in the receiver. Obviously, the past few years they went high with receiver picks 3 years in a row, I think. So, yeah, and it's just interesting. It's just interesting that the narrative isn't, let's make Joe Burrow throw the ball around, which it might be. We don't hear these discussions.
I truly don't think it is. It probably isn't yet. But with Garoppolo, he's proven it. I think time and time again, he will toss one or two to you. The one to Quandre Diggs, all he did was stand there. That was a bad throw. And Jimmy, I mean, hey, to his credit, Jimmy told you it was bad. He said, I forced it in there. He actually said this today. I forced it in there. I should have been patient. The one to Wagner, I think he said, I also have to be patient again, too. I needed to let Wagner clear out. He didn't clear out as quick as I thought, so I threw it. To me, those are two inexcusable ones, and we see that a little bit more than we should see it. And that's why they decided to trade for Trey Lance.
Yeah,
they know what they have in him.
Yeah, and a vet, like, come on, bro. And the one that was more egregious was to Diggs, just because it was on first down. It was on first down. Not only was it on first down,
the check.
He also had just Elijah Mitchell check down. Like, Brady hits that all day. Like, it's not even a thought. It's like, okay, it's first down. Let's get these quick 8 to 10 yards real quick. Like, not throw it into triple coverage. Like, the game is tied at this point too. Like that. I can't wrap my mind around the second one at all, and I don't even want to spend any more time thinking about it.
Well, I mean, to your point,
so egregious.
I think to your point, sometimes we maybe just don't need to find a way to justify things and just say that was just a bad play.
Yeah,
I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. Sometimes we got to call a spade, and if it's just a bad play, it's just a bad play. You know, it happens. 100%. Let's see here. I had another. So let's talk about Emmanuel Mosley's injury and the cornerback situation as a whole. Jeez. Give me your thoughts on that. Obviously, it was a big loss losing Mosley. I think the whole tenor of that game changed when he went out. Lenore came in. I remember looking at the screen and saying, "Oh, he's about to throw this to DK." Lenore's in press man coverage. Lenore doesn't have the foot speed that DK has. This probably isn't going to be great. Boom. I think DK got the ball reception all the way down to the 2. And then they scored after that. So early thoughts on the Emmanuel Mosley injury. What do you see going forward? Should he be out for a few weeks as is expected? And just the cornerback situation as a whole.
I'm hoping he's not out for the season, to be honest with you, bro. I've had a high ankle, and it's legit 6 to 8 weeks. Like, if it's an extreme high ankle, yeah, it's legit 6 to 8 weeks. It pretty much ended my sophomore season in college, and it was. But I also had like tiny micro fractures, so hopefully it's nothing like that. High ankles are tough, though. They're tough, man, and it's hoping for a speedy recovery for E-Man. What I will say is, I appreciate you, Pat. I don't know if that's necessarily changed the game, only because, again, we still pretty much, they did all things considered, with Norman, Lenore, Quan, whoever, the rest of the secondary that was healthy, they did a pretty decent job on two really, really good receivers. Now, DK's numbers haven't the past 5 weeks have been, unlike DK. And a lot of that's because of dealing with Russell being out and having, Geno Smith as your starter. The offense overall for Seattle has been out of sync for a while. That's not a mystery. Everybody knows that. But
even with Russ back, the past 3 games it had been still been right, which is fair. I'm not even going to fault Russ for that. I would expect that as he's coming back from injury. 100%. So for me, because Russ is Russ, I'm not mad at it. I just was surprised to see when Mosley went out. I felt like that was the only time that their offense somewhat started to click, because they had been real stale, I think, for a few weeks.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll say that, but again, like I said, I don't know if it changed too much of the imprint of the game. I'm not going to just say, "Oh, E-Man's out, the game was over." Nah, because I still think the defense was still playing at a pretty high level. If you go back and watch the play where Bosa sacked Russ, the second one where he
the sack fumble,
if you go back and watch that sack happened because there was incredible coverage on the front end and the back end. There was incredible coverage. Russ was actually trying to throw that ball quick, very quick, and he looked, it wasn't there. He looked he pumped. Wasn't there. He looked again. I think he tried to hit something deep. Then that's when Bosa hit him. Right. So that to me, because Bosa beat his dude, but he didn't beat him. Even like immediately. Had he beat him, but what Russ was looking for the first time was still there, he would have been able to get that ball off. It wasn't there because the coverage was good underneath and up top. So I'm going to equate that to the secondary playing a lot better than a lot of people are giving them credit for. Also, some of those other hurries were, Russ had to either get out of the pocket or he had to throw the ball away. Like, they did decent on DK, who's a physical animal and a freak. He caught a few slants on like third downs, which he's going to do because he's just a big body. Like, you're not going to stop. That's literally a layup. Right. But other than that, they did a pretty decent job. So I'm not going to just go as far as saying, when E-Man went out, that completely changed the dynamic of the game. Now, going into this game without E-Man for an entire game, this is a different animal. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Boyd are boys.
They're good.
Like, they are legit boys.
At minimum, they're good.
They're nice. They're a very, very good trio. Like, they're messing with the Cowboys trio, like, for sure.
I'm with you. Yeah.
They're nice. They are very, very nice. They doubled down on receiver, which not a lot of organizations just do from a standpoint of, okay, we got this franchise quarterback. We've already got 2 really good receivers in Boyd and Higgins. They're emerging. They're usually going to lean on the side of, let's go get him some protection, which everybody wanted them to take Penei Sewell. They didn't fall for it. They're like, nah, we got this dog at LSU. He happens to be Burrow's boy. They happen to have a lot of chemistry.
He's still his boy.
We're going to go We're going to go get him too and double down on these weapons that we have and make our QB happy. And that's what they've done. And that is a scary, scary thing to go into. They're also a very hungry team and a young team that don't know no better. That's also a scary thing because
I'm with you on that.
Go into a young and they're in an environment where, okay, we just lost the game, but they're so young and they're hungry. Like, they're not going to beat down on themselves. They're going to be like, all right, well, who's our next meal? And so they're going to be looking at the Niners as their next meal. They're going to be trying to be like, okay, we need to spray the ball around. They're weak in their secondary. That's our strength. We need to go at that. So with that said, coming into this game, I'm not going to say E-Man's injury was the difference in the Niners Seahawks game, but it very well could be going to Cincinnati.
I agree. I don't think it was necessarily the difference with us winning and losing that game. I just felt like it jump-started the Seahawks offense. Not that they did anything great, because they still were kind of sputtering around, having short fields. They just took advantage. This was one of the weirdest games to me because I just felt like they took advantage of the opportunities we gave them. Yes, we had 3 turnovers to their 4, but I just saw them take advantage of that. So I still didn't feel like they went down the field except for the one right before the half, which I think, to be totally honest, I think we were playing soft coverage to ideally at most give up 3, which would have been 17. But they still gave up the touchdown. I think that was probably the goal. So I'm with you in the fact that it didn't change. It didn't change the outcome of the game. I just felt like it gave them a chance to kind of get into somewhat of a rhythm, and that's
gave them confidence. Yeah, gave them confidence for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
So let's see. What was the other one? A couple more. Did you want to mention anything about the penalties? What were your thoughts about the penalties? I had listed it down as just self-inflicted wounds. I think that was the reason the Seahawks won this game. We had our own.
The self-inflicted wounds. The self-inflicted wounds don't hurt as much if it wasn't.
I'm with you, Raymond.
Yeah, 100% a very weird game. And to go along with that, the self-inflicted wounds hurt, but they hurt so much more when the other team isn't being called for the very, very obvious penalties. So that's what I'll say. And again, I'm not going to spend too much time talking.
I was told we weren't allowed to talk about refs.
I didn't want to, right? Because I didn't want to sound like a homer. But at the end of the day, I mean, the touchdown at the end of the half that you just brought up is a very obvious hold on our man. I can't pronounce his name. The guy we got from Houston,
Charles Omenihu.
Yep, right. 92, right? He's number 92, right?
That's correct.
Very, 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 very blatant hold right in the middle of the field, not called. Not countless times that obviously Bosa gets held. That's frustrating. The obvious Trent Sherfield, defensive PI in the back of the end zone or a hold, whatever you want to call it. He should have had the ball first and goal. So when you take those things into consideration, the Niners were definitely sloppy. The Niners definitely had some personal foul calls and late hits on Russell Wilson. They definitely had some blocks in the back, Trent Sherfield.
Right.
They definitely had a hold on a nice Jeff Wilson run. Like they definitely had false starts, which are going to happen up there with the 12. It's just what happens. However, when the other team, it's just magnified when you just feel like the other team isn't really getting called for some of these. It hurts. It definitely hurts. And, but that's all I got to say about the penalties. I firmly believe had the game been called a little more like even, then I think it's a wash when it comes to those. And those penalties that we just mentioned aren't really as big of a deal. And I'm not even thinking about them. But if you're thinking about it and they're magnified, when you just feel like the other team just isn't getting called for them. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, that's just what it is.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I hate talking too much about it because like you just said, I don't want to seem like a homer either. I did think that some of those calls were, let's use the sports term that a lot of us, commentators use, is egregious. I thought that some of them were egregious. I thought that there were a few, in my personal opinion, I really did think that Sidney Jones hold at the very end of the game on third down to Trent Sherfield, I thought that was a hold. In my mind, when I first saw it, when I went back and looked at it and I watched the replay, what I thought was, okay, so if he's running, let's say, for example, he's trying to get to the pylon, there was no way he could have got there because Sidney Jones was holding on to him the whole way. Obviously, he stopped and turned back.
He had his arm hooked and everything.
Correct. Yeah. He had his arm hooked. And so I was like, how can you not call that? And I know some people had been questioning, well, I really don't understand why Jimmy Garoppolo even threw him the ball there. I'm going to be totally real, and I think that was a great throw that Jimmy threw there. And I think Jimmy knew and saw that he was holding on to Sidney Jones was holding on to him. So I thought Jimmy was hoping to get the call. I still thought it was a good attempt by Trent Sherfield with his one hand. I just personally felt like that was something that should have been called. Some people disagree. Some people don't like it. But in my head, I cannot shake the fact that when I looked at that play, I said, if he's trying to go to the pylon, Sidney Jones literally impeded him from getting there. And obviously Trent Sherfield stopped, turned back in towards the middle of the field. But I'm just like, wow, that's a hold.
The narrative would have been who knows what would have happened in that game. The narrative could have been so different this week.
Right.
Had that been called.
I agree. I agree. First and goal at the 1.
First and goal at the 1. And I also honestly think they're going for 2. I honestly think they scored.
I did too.
For 2.
I did too. So we can switch to that. I thought they were going for 2 as well. Your thoughts on that? I thought I'll let you explain it because I heard you explain it the other day and you did a good job with it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the way I look at the game flow, and again, for a lot of people who don't know me, I'm very, very superstitious, and I was just talking about this in the space the other day. I don't live tweet, so I'm now that I'm in this content, making content now, I'm going to try to start doing better with my Twitter. I'm not very active on Twitter, unless the Niners do something awful or have an awful pick. That's when I get on there and express myself a little bit. But during the game, don't talk to me, don't text me. I'm at the crib by myself watching the game. I don't go to bar, like none of that. I'm that guy. And so usually when they're Sersky, big shout out Sersky.
My guy.
Usually when they're in the game was not getting out of hand, but I was getting frustrated with the game and getting frustrated hearing the 12 and also getting frustrated hearing Kevin Harlan on the call when and every first down they get, it's just looking more bleak and more bleak. So I muted the TV. So I muted the TV on that last drive the Seahawks had. Then we get to stop and get the fumble, and we're driving. I still have it on mute. So I don't know what they're saying on the broadcast, but in my head, the feeling I had, the energy I had was the way they were moving the ball, which they were doing. I was like, fuck, like, where has this been all the whole second half? They're just moving the ball like, fuck it, we got to score. So whatever happened earlier doesn't matter. They need to score right now. So when I'm watching, I just got the sense and the energy that Kyle and the way Kyle was milking the clock also, PTSD from the Packers game, Aaron Rodgers, and Russell Wilson is obviously very capable of doing the same thing. So the way I looked at how he was managing the time, because he didn't want to give them the ball back with any time left, I was also feeling like, okay, he's going to go for the win here, because you don't want to go to overtime in Seattle. The old notion is, when you are on the road, you play for the win. You are at home, you play for the tie. You're in a hostile environment. You're against your rival. You want to really, really stick it to him. I feel like he was about to, grab his nuts on that one and really just be like, all right, this is it. We're going to end this right here. And unfortunately, it didn't work out like that. They obviously didn't score the touchdown. He had a really good play called up on 4th and goal. I got to give it to Kyle on that. He got Trent Sherfield wide open. And what was even crazy about that play was the defender was actually sitting in the flat right on Trent Sherfield, but then went with Kittle because it looked like they were going to triple or double team Kittle. Right. And at the very last second, if you look at the replay, he actually just drifted off and left Sherfield wide open.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Go back and look at it. And he left. That's how Sherfield got so open in the flat, because initially that was his man. And then I think he saw Kittle breaking, I think, to the corner.
He did.
He stopped sinking. He sunk back and kind of went back to double or triple, because 2 people were already on Kittle. So they were really concerned about Kittle on that last play and thought maybe Jimmy would try to force it to him. And that left Trent Sherfield wide open. That's who Jimmy was going to. But unfortunately, who was that? Dunlap?
That blocked it? Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so Dunlap walked, was it not Brunskill?
It was on Compton.
It was on, you're positive it was Compton again?
Yeah, okay. It was. Yeah. And that throw was going to Kittle, which I do think. I don't want to be a homer. It looked like it was going to make it there. But
you mean Sherfield?
No, he was going to Sherfield?
No, I'm 100%. Yeah,
I'm going to need to go look at it again. My bad. I missed it.
He was definitely throwing to Sherfield. That's why I got batted down, because he didn't have because it was Sherfield was on the flat. They were on the flats, and he would have walked into the end zone. He was essentially in the end zone.
It's just more frustrating to think about. This Trent Payne says, I went to the game. The last drive was the loudest I've ever heard a stadium. Man, so the 12s really get loud like that then.
Yeah.
I ain't had a chance to go.
They're not going to have much else to cheer for the rest of the season, so I get it.
Hey, I'll take a shot anytime we can get one.
Right.
Let's see here. Let's switch to the positives. I know there's a lot of negatives that we can talk about, but I do want to switch to the positives. I've listed a few here. Do you want me to open up the floor to you and give you a chance to say? Do you want me to say a name and you want to respond to that one?
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah.
Okay, we'll start with the obvious. Let's go with George Kittle. Thoughts on George Kittle in this game? I thought he had a great game. I'll let you take the floor.
Yeah, obviously GK did his thing, man. He proved why, he was at one point the highest paid tight end in the league until Kelsey went and got his bag. But I mean, yeah, Kittle's who we all knew he was, man. And Kittle's such a interesting player and person, but interesting player in the sense of he doesn't mind so much when he doesn't get the ball. I said this earlier. In the space right before we hopped on. I was just kind of messing around, and I forget who's. I think it was Enzo. Shout out Enzo. Yeah, it was Enzo's space, and we're kind of just shooting the shit, and we're comparing the 2012 Niners to 2019 Niners. And I was just kind of just who kind of. Then we're comparing teams, then we're comparing individual players. So I was like, Kittle or Vernon Davis, and that was a tough one. That was a tough one for a lot of people. And I said,
what do you want from your tight end?
The thing about Vernon Davis's mentality versus Kittle's, Vernon Davis wouldn't be okay with, obviously in the beginning of the season when Kittle wasn't getting a lot of targets. And that's one thing that separates those two. Not to say Vernon was selfish. Vernon was just misunderstood in the sense of, I'm really good and I'm one of the, if not the player. Some of those Niners.
I'm really him.
Right. Some of those Niners teams he was the only playmaker, especially before they got Crabtree and some of the other weapons they started emboldened. Like before they got some of those weapons they were putting around him, like the early Vernon Davis years, like he was the best playmaker on the team. And obviously he would voice that if he wasn't getting the ball. Kittle's not going to be like that. That's one thing that I've really admired about Kittle is sometimes in these games where he's not getting the ball and he's strictly just used as a blocker and he's not really involved in the pass game much. You don't hear from him, man. And he's happy with pancaking dudes. Like that's not a facade and that's not an act. Like that's how he really is. So to see him then just flip a switch and Debo's out, bet. Let me just go get 8 180 and 2 tugs real quick. Like that, put the team on my back. Like type, the New Orleans Saints, like that Kittle, like they channeled that Kittle when he's dragging defenders on the sideline, and put us in field goal range to win that game. Like that type of shit right there was like where it's so good to see that in a big game, hostile environment, your rival, like that he could just be like, all right, let me just take off, let me turn into Superman and not be Clark Kent real quick. You know what I mean? Like,
I actually find that interesting that he has the ability to flip a switch like that. I think it says a lot to me about him as not just a player, but the person that he is. I think he might be the true ultimate team player.
100%.
He's going to sit in there and block all day long. And then, like you just said, Debo's out. I need to carry the load offensively. Bet, I got you. Let me go get 9 for 181, 2 touchdowns because I can't. What?
Right. But it's also
that man is credit.
Kyle. But it's also like Kyle, use him a little more often, please. Like, you know what I mean?
If they both at the same time, boy.
Delaney Walker over Davis and Kittle.
You'd be the troll, but hey, he was underrated.
But no, and but it's also like frustrating in the sense of like, all right, like I don't expect 9 for 180 and 2 tugs every game, but at the end of the day, like Kittle should be a lot more involved than he is. Debo, Ayuk aside, whether they're healthy or not, like Kittle should always be involved that much. He's that much of a matchup problem. And I don't think, and that's the other thing, the Seahawks knew that he would be like that's who we would be looking for, and he still had that kind of game. So imagine what you should be able to do now, Kyle, with Kittle, Ayuk, Debo healthy.
It should be nasty. It should be it should be be crazy. Right. If they're on at the same time, who do you stop?
Exactly.
Oh my.
Exactly.
Well, that's the thing. I know some people will say, well, it depends on your quarterback. And you're right. To an extent, it does depend on the quarterback and the ability to get him the ball. I agree with that.
What up, Panor? VD was a great blocker too, though. Don't sleep on Vernon Davis' blocker. Vernon Davis was pancaking motherfuckers too. Like, don't get it twisted.
VD, has there ever been a faster tight end? I mean, legitimately.
Yeah, I would give Kittle the edge on hands. But not Kittle's first year, though. Kittle was dropping everything. I don't know if a lot of people don't remember that. Kittle would drop layups after layups his very first year.
Right.
He got rid of that his second year. Immediately was different. But I would say hands, I'm going to give to Kittle. Obviously, speed and athleticism. Vernon gets the nod. Blocking, Wash. And
dang, you would say Wash, huh? You would say Wash.
I'm going to say Vernon used to beat dudes. Like a lot of people.
I don't know if I've seen nobody like Kittle though when it comes to that.
I think I don't know. I just think the spotlight is just on him so much more because of his personality. Like, but
you don't think he's that good?
No, he's incredible. But
blocking. I know you think he's a good
blocking. I just think Vernon was a really underrated blocker just because of how much of an athletic freak he was. He was still very, very strong.
Sure. I agree with that.
He was also kicking dudes out of the club too. Like Vernon Davis was definitely maul some dudes. So yeah, it's closer. I'm gonna call it a wash. And Yak.
Yak. Ooh.
Vernon used to be. Vernon would. See, that's the other thing though. Vernon didn't need Yak because Vernon was catching vertical bombs. Like Vernon was like really catching bombs like a receiver. Like
absolutely,
Alex Smith would hit him in the seam, or he'd run that wheel route. I think he scored on that wheel route twice in the NFC Championship game against the Giants in the pouring rain. Like just perfect bomb. Just like Kittle. That's not one thing Kittle does have in his game. Like Kittle's not really going to just catch a ball.
He's not going to separate like that.
Right. He's not going to catch a ball over the top of the defense like Vernon would do that. Like 100%.
Right. T Breezy, thank you for the contribution. Appreciate that. He says, when will Kyle Shanahan take the bullet for his team and get a fine, but call out the officials at the press podium after the game for the non-calls?
Yeah, he went.
Yeah.
He definitely went. Politically correct route. He definitely didn't take the bait because they definitely asked him about that PI. But he to his credit, he said it looked as so. Because did you see that? They asked him about the short field, and he said that's what it looked like to me. So he didn't not say it wasn't a PI. He definitely said that's what it looked like to me. Yeah, he agreed. He just wasn't gonna he just wasn't gonna dip into his bag. That's all it was, and I don't blame him. Like if he's got bills to pay too, so I don't blame him for wanting to. Fuck that. You know what I mean? Right. I feel you though, T Breezy, but he said he didn't say it wasn't. So
absolutely, yeah. Some stats on George Kittle here before we wrap up with him. So 9 catches, 181 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 rush yard for 5 yards. I did the calculations, and Kittle accounted for 60% of Jimmy's air yardage. Also, this was George Kittle's 3rd game with 175 or more receiving yards in a game, which is now an NFL record, breaking a tie with Shannon Sharp. The three times that he did it, obviously, this past Sunday, 9 for 181, 2 touchdowns. The 2 previous ones, December 9, 2018, so almost 3 years ago to the day. That's pretty crazy. That was a win over the Eagles. I can't remember. I forgot to list who we played against, but I think that one was the one against the Eagles. He had 7 for 210 and a TD with Nick Mullins. And then the other one was October 4, 2020. That one was a loss. He had 15 for 183, 1 TD, also with Nick Mullins. And then this past week with Jimmy G. So shout out George Kittle.
Who's that 15 against? Who's that 15 receptions against?
I can't remember. I forgot to list them when I was looking it up. One was the Eagles. And then the Seahawks was this week. I forgot who the other one was. I can't remember off the top of my head.
All good. Yeah, it's all good.
But the 2 other games were with Nick Mullins. I thought that was interesting because when I read that, the first thing that went through my head was, oh, yeah, Nick Mullins, he understood the assignment. Give that man the ball.
100%.
Yeah, so moving off George Kittle, let's talk about the defense real quick, the positives that the defense brought. I know the first person for me that comes to mind, Aziz Al-Shaair. He had a great game. You could talk about DJ Jones. He had a great game. There's multiple dudes we could actually talk about, to be honest. Thoughts on Al-Shaair?
Dog, beast.
Dog,
animal,
bro.
Animal. I'm not going to give him – I just think he's starting to round in the form. As it just seems like the Niners have a knack. They're really, really good teams. Always have a knack for finding that diamond in the rough,
right.
linebacker, whether it's, Fred Warner, third, was Fred Warner 3rd round, 4th round? Pick? Third round pick. Obviously Aziz going completely undrafted is completely different. Appreciate you, Tanya. Even going back to, Bo was also like a later round, also 3rd. Was Bo 3rd? Bo was the 3rd out of Penn State. Navarro was also like
he was a 3rd. You're right.
He was a 3rd round pick. Obviously Patrick Willis was
Ole Miss.
First round pick out of Ole Miss. You kind of knew what you were getting with P. Willie, but
right.
But Shaair, but something that just stood out to me with all 3 with Bo, Warner, and Aziz to me was those guys were guys that were brought in and weren't necessarily expected. There wasn't much expected at either one. They all came in playing, started off playing special teams, started off way, bottom of the depth chart and just worked their way up. Especially Aziz. And so to see how far he's come, like those guys that I mentioned before that had to work their way up as well, to see how far he's come in a short span, man, is
it's kind of beautiful, right?
It's very beautiful, man. It's a love story, man. It's why you fall in love with sports. It's why people love the underdog story so much, man. It's
right.
You got the guy who's fighting and bro, he's been on this team battling like for a while. I remember just seeing him on kickoff.
Let's talk about it. We can talk about it.
Seeing him on kickoff and you're just like, who's this guy was, his wild last name, Aziz Al-Shaair, was just got a crazy name. But he always stuck out because of his name, you know what I mean? And then even, when he thinks he's going to get some time, then Greenlaw, shows up, and Greenlaw kind of,
Stonewall at the
solidifies that role. And then obviously it's next man up mentality. When Greenlaw goes down, now he has a real chance to make a name for himself. And I remember always just seeing Aziz as a dude with the big arm breaks. Like I never ever thought about him in the long name. I was just like, all right, that's he's been on the roster for a while. I've seen him.
He had an elbow injury that was back in college. That he got
exactly.
That thing ever
I just
since.
seen him with the big I just seen him with the big brace and the long last name and that's all he was. And now to see him,
he balling.
All the work he's put in that's coming to fruition, man. It's a beautiful thing to see. And man, he's taking the ball away too. It's one thing to have just a gang of tackles, a gang of solos and assisted, and we've had a lot of guys like that. Even the dude that retired like after one season, Borderline, he used to have a ton of tackles. But it's one thing to have a ton of tackles, but also take the ball away. Now he is doing both. Like that is big, and that's the other thing that I was going to take away from the defense. Also positive, is they're continuing to train and taking the ball away. They're going to have to force turnovers this weekend against Seattle. The Cincinnati. It's going to be pivotal for them to be able to not only have everything perfect, but also have some things bounce their way for this thing.
Absolutely.
It's coming in as banged up as we are. They're banged up as well, but it's going to be pivotal for them to continue that train and getting turnovers like they've been getting the past 4 or 5 games.
Absolutely. And just to close out on Aziz, 16 tackles, 11 solo, 1 tackle for loss, a half sack, a forced fumble.
Should have had a pick.
Exactly. Stat stuffer, playmaker.
Underneath, man. Get those hands underneath.
Almost had the pick. If I'm going to be real, he's been the best linebacker on the team this year in totality. And that's not a shot at Fred Warner. I just think Aziz is having a really good year.
Yeah.
And I think that Fred is rounding into form. This is no disrespect whatsoever towards Fred Warner.
I think he's going to come back also with definitely not a chip on his shoulder because he's already gotten paid, but I don't think he's happy with his play, and I think he also wants to take some weight off of Aziz also when he comes back. So I expect Fred to play this weekend. By the way, I expect him to play for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I know one thing I wanted to say. So I don't think a lot of people know that. I know you do. So Aziz came out in 2019. He was at FAU with Lane Kiffin and Chris Kiffin, and Chris Kiffin was hired by the Niners in the offseason of 2019 as a pass rush specialist. So he had worked with Al-Shaair for a year. They were at FAU together. And if y'all remember, that's the same year that Dre Greenlaw was we drafted him in the 5th round. So it was it was Al-Shaair who goes undrafted. Greenlaw gets drafted in the 5th round. And Chris Kiffin convinced the Niners to sign Al-Shaair. Now, I'm not sure if you guys remember who was on that roster in 2019, but it was going to be like a long shot at the time. It looked like for Al-Shaair to make the roster. I mean, Fred Warner was here. We had just given Quan Alexander $54 million over 4 years. Obviously, Dre Greenlaw was just signed. And no disrespect to Malcolm Smith, who was a former MVP in the Super Bowl with the Seahawks, that man was on the team too. Yeah. But Al-Shaair still made the team, and actually it was Malcolm Smith of all the linebackers who was cut before that season started. So yeah, I just wanted to say shout out to Al-Shaair for working hard. I know that he grew up a Ravens fan, and he drew a lot of inspiration, said that his favorite player was Ray Lewis growing up. So shout out to him for having that personality, the mentality, and the drive that who cares about where you were drafted if you were undrafted. The man put in work. So shout out to Al-Shaair. Just wanted to shout him out on that. 100%. Yeah, I think we got a contribution here. That's my brother right there. He says, someone on Twitter said, there's no way Kyle Shanahan wants to keep starting Jimmy. The Orcs are making him start Jimmy, and I kind of believe it. Watching Kyle's displeasure is a telling story. Yeah, I mean, you definitely think that Kyle wants more from his quarterback, right? Jimmy makes a couple plays here and there that would, piss off any quarterback. Things happen, and I think that's probably what the Niners got tired with as a whole. And like I said a little bit ago, that's why you make the trade up to 3 to get a guy that you think can make those extra plays, and also outside of structure, make some plays when things aren't perfect as well too. So yeah, just in regards to this comment, I definitely think that Kyle is looking for a little bit more. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. He's definitely the QB thing is weird still to me. Again, the conspiracy theorist in me tells me, outside looking in, it's hard for me to believe that Trey might have really, really, really been Kyle's guy, just based off the fact of how he doesn't seem to be itching and scratching to get him in the game, because if that were the case, Jimmy's giving him every single opportunity to do that this season. Jimmy was 9-3, 8-4, not playing at a Pro Bowl level because he'll never be a Pro Bowler, but as far as just being competent and not turning the ball over and just playing really, really sound football, then I could see okay, well, maybe we got to chill on this all this Trey talk, but that's not the case. So
fair.
And we've seen just how displeased Kyle is. Just
right
like
there.
Literally, like we've seen it. We've seen it on the TV. We've seen how this. He's letting us all know just how displeased he is with Jimmy in the moment. So
the quotes that have been used so much. This is simple shit. Can you do it? We've seen it covering the face.
Right, he tries to cover his face, but we all see the vein in his neck when he's when he's screaming at Jimmy after another bonehead INT. So with that said, it's weird. I still can't figure it out. I wouldn't say, if anything, I would think it was the other way around, that Kyle is wanting to still start Jimmy, and the Yorks and the front office wanted Trey. So, but again, I still can't figure it out for the life of me. The only thing I do know is, what I do know for a fact is Kyle isn't throwing a season. There's too many players that are on 1 year. There's too many guys he's went to battle with. Too many guys he actually cares about personally to just be like, absolutely, I'm just gonna throw a season. I don't care. I still believe, he genuinely believes, his best chance of winning is with Jimmy Garoppolo. 100%.
Sure. I agree with you on that.
And that Trey's not ready. He always and he said that verbatim. Like, he always said, you'll know when Trey's ready because he'll play. Period. Right. It was point blank. You'll know.
Croc said it best, and it actually made me think about this. He said, if you would have told Kyle Shanahan at the beginning of the year that you were going to be 6-6 at this point of the season, what would you have done? Would you have started the rookie? And that has me thinking. I've still been thinking about that since, I think he said that on, what is today, Wednesday? He said that, I think, Monday. I've been thinking about it since then. If we knew we were going to be 6-6, would he still play Jimmy or would he play Trey? And what I've kind of come to is, because because the NFC has been so competitive, I'll say that, I'll be nice. It's been so competitive that there's a lot of teams still fighting for playoff positioning, and the fact that we're still in the playoffs, I tend to believe that he would still play Jimmy Garoppolo because we're still currently in the playoffs. And Kyle has continued to tell us that if we weren't in the playoff conversation, he would then play the rookies. Now, does that mean it's the same thing for Trey that it is for any of the other rookies? No, I'm not necessarily saying that. What I am saying is, because we're still fighting for a playoff spot, I think in that regard, Kyle probably thinks that Jimmy does give him the best chance to win.
Yeah.
Do we all agree with that? No, not everybody agrees with that. Some people do, some people don't. I tend to think that we'd be more explosive with Trey, and the fact that Trey can make plays happen with his legs gives him a little extra leeway that Jimmy Garoppolo just never will have. That's what happens when you're, born athletically different. Those things happen. But at the end of the day, right, you're a quarterback. You have to be able to execute the game plan. Can you throw the ball short? Or are you only hitting things deep? People have been questioning whether Trey has the ability, or not the ability, whether he's learned the short game yet. I don't know if he would start Trey even at 6-6. Your thoughts?
I mean, no, I still don't think. I just think he's not ready to. I also think that, and he alluded to this a little bit when when they asked him pretty much why he scrapped the 2 quarterback system thing. There's different fronts, and I wasn't, the defense going to be different looks, and I wasn't really prepared for that. Blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
I also don't think that. I think his playbook's going to look so different next year with Trey.
Oh yeah,
it's going to.
You think it'll be more power runs and stuff?
Nah, not just power runs. It's just going to be. It's not necessarily just power runs. It's going to be a lot of nakeds. It's going to be more. He's going to get back to like his boots. A lot of the things that he doesn't trust Jimmy to even do right now, and turning his back to the defense. So it's going to be a lot of. It's going to be a lot of that. Obviously, he's going to be able to implement his own read a lot better, but he'll have more of a rhythm with it, which is what I don't think he was able to establish while he was bringing both quarterbacks in and out. So, that's just how I feel about that situation. Like, I just think his playbook's going to look so much different, and he's not, I guess, ready to make that transition yet. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
I mean, I think that's a fair point.
Yeah.
So we've been going for an hour and 10 minutes. Let's go ahead and transition to the Bengals so we can close this show out for tonight. I want to thank you all again for sticking with us. We got 52 people in here. Appreciate the time. Once again, this is Niner Talk. I am Jamal. This is my other co-host, Jasper. Thank you again so much for joining us tonight. Jasper, let's go ahead and transition to the Bengals. When you look at the Bengals, how do you view them? Do they confuse you? Because I look at that team and I don't know what to expect from them on a week-to-week basis. They've shown me so much, but they're young. So my question is, with this team, what are you expecting out of them? And do you think any of their game plan changes due to the possible injury due to the injury of Joe Burrow's finger? Is that going to play a factor? Give me your thoughts.
No, I think he plays. I think we have to go into that game as if he's healthy, and of course, don't even think about none of that. I feel like Mixon's going to play. They're a confusing young team, but as I mentioned earlier, man, they're a confusing young, hungry team. And when you're young and hungry like that, like, you're not really so much worried about, you're not worried about, the past game, the last game that happened. You're worried about just the next opponent, man. And as everybody is, but to a certain extent, I think, with older teams, and you can get caught up in your ways, and there are no ways for them. They don't know nothing. So, that's a very, very scary team. And I think right now, they look at us as probably somebody, especially in the secondary, where we're wounded and we're lacking, and they feel like that's an area they can exploit us. So that's a very, very dangerous team. We've seen what they've done to, some really good established teams like Pittsburgh and the Ravens now, although they are in their division, and, they feel like they have not a leg on them, but like, they just feel like, okay, like that's a team we see twice. We know pretty much have a good idea of what they're going to do coming into the game. So they've gotten the best out of both of those teams, and both really, really well coached teams. So with that said, this team is not a juggernaut by any means. They can be beat.
Right.
They've been very up and down, much like the Niners have this year.
Mm-hmm.
They have found ways to beat themselves. They have found ways to turn the ball over, just like they did this past Sunday against the Chargers.
The Chargers, right?
Yeah, and the Chargers were very opportunistic, on some of those turnovers. And that game got out of hand in the beginning, and they came back, made a game
right back in, right?
And then but then the Chargers ran away with it again. So, it's going to be
that's why they confuse me.
Yeah, exactly. And this is going to be a very interesting game, man. But I like the Niners in the sense of, it's a lot of people don't like the Niners coming into this game, which is another reason why I like the Niners, because just when you think, you either not have given up on them, but like, just when you think like, okay, this is a game, they can't possibly win this game. They're not going to.
Right. Then they do something crazy.
Right. So, I mean, I just have a funny feeling the Niners are going to, again, have offensively, at least have an offensive game plan that's going to center around not turning the ball over, not letting Jimmy do a lot of the things that can get him into trouble. With that said, though, then there's also like still the part where Jimmy can still be Jimmy regardless of the game plan. So,
do you think they're going to stop our run? Do you think they have I don't want to say the ability. Do you think they will?
And it just depends who's their personnel. We have a semi-healthy Elijah Mitchell. I think he's still forces you to honor the run enough where they can get it going enough to still be able to work some of their play action and hit some of those crossers they like to hit. That'll be big. But without Elijah Mitchell, then that swings everything. It'll be really, really tough then to see how they'll even attack them defensively, because they're pretty banged up as well as in their linebacker core as well as their secondaries. I want to say they're without their top corner as well this week.
Is he out? Awuzie?
Yeah, Awuzie. I believe he's out.
I didn't even know that yet.
Yeah. I was in one of their communities, Bleacher Report communities, and that was pretty much one of the things that they're worried about, along with our defensive line versus their also banged up offensive line. So
it's
going to come down to one of those games. You know, anything could happen, man. It's the rare East Coast 1 o'clock start game too.
Right.
So whatever that means, you know what I mean? So yeah, man. Yeah, we are gonna need a lot of Kittle next week, man.
We are.
Weekend. I don't know if he's gonna need that exact performance, but we're definitely gonna need him.
He's got to be involved, you would think, 100%. Right? Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm still confused about what I should expect from this team, just because I know there's a lot of, I don't even know the word for it. A lot of things have to happen. A lot of things have to go right. I have a lot of questions in my head, I guess is what I'm trying to say. What kind of Joe Burrow are we going to get? What is going to be their offensive focus? Are they going to throw the ball 30 times because they like the matchup of their receivers versus our corners? Or are they going to say, hey, Joe Mixon, I need you to go for 30 carries today and 100 yards? Now, I really think it's honestly going to come down to Joe Burrow's pinky. If he can throw the ball well, I think they'll probably try to attack us that way. I did also watch this past the game versus the Chargers as well, too. And he was still delivering the ball, but it definitely took some steam off of it. And I already don't think he has the strongest arm. Now, I don't think it's super weak or anything like that. I think he's got a very good enough arm. But the question is, will it be a nice spiral? Is he practicing throughout this week? I'm honestly not sure. Is he going to take some time off? For me, the biggest question in this game, if you can't tell by the way I'm talking, is Joe Burrow. I think the Niners have done a great job over the past month, really, against the run. That doesn't mean I don't fear Joe Mixon, because I still think he's a really good back. And I actually think he's having an underrated year. He's having a really good year. But my question is, what kind of Joe Burrow are we going to see? If he comes out and throws 30 times and is able to take advantage of our secondary, then I don't necessarily love the matchup. I don't necessarily think there's really going to be anyone that can guard Jamar Chase. And I still think that Tyler Boyd is going to have, I don't want to say have his way. I think he'll have a couple good catches as well, though, too. Yeah. And then T. Higgins in the red zone. If they get to the red zone, I expect T. Higgins, if he doesn't get touchdowns, he's definitely going to get his opportunities.
Yeah.
100%. I'm not really too worried about us on offense. I think that we'll have the ability to move the ball, but I do also respect the guys that they have on their team. I think Jesse Bates is a really good safety. I believe Von Bell is a very good complementary safety for him as well, too. I believe he's a willing tackler. I know you just said Awuzie went down. I forgot who their other corner is. I was just looking the other day. So I respect the Bengals. I'm almost not even ready to say a score prediction, but I do think that it would be good for us to give a score prediction here today before we close up. Are you willing to say it yet?
No, fuck no. Yeah, I don't do score predictions at all. I told you, man, I'm like by the book, like when it comes to superstition and I don't do that. I don't do that at all.
All right. Well, what we'll do, we'll end it with this. We'll end it with a beat Cincinnati. Where'd the other one go? I saw a bang, bang, Maine.
Yeah.
And
go ahead, play. Go ahead.
We're getting ready for Cincinnati.
That part.
Man, we ready for Cincinnati. Hey, just want to say thank y'all for tuning in with us tonight. Be sure to keep tuning in with us on Wednesdays, 6 p.m. Every Wednesday, we're bringing you the latest Niners content. It's been fun. Jasper, any last comments before we get out of here, man?
No, man. Let's keep it rolling, man. I'm
happy.
Yeah, I think this went well, and hope y'all enjoyed. Hope y'all enjoyed. Yeah.
Appreciate y'all. See you in here, Pinor, Mariah. See some of my homies in here, man. Appreciate having y'all in here. We'll catch y'all next Wednesday. Y'all take it easy. Peace.